Hey kids, it's the internet.
Women, wine, and fancy dining. All you need to keep me here. That is what you got, my friend, and I think the road's end is near.
Okay, welcome along to our Christmas Menopause Mavericks. We are sadly down one Maverick today. She has had a bereavement in the family and is caught up with all sorts of admin and horrible things. So Emma will be back with us next time, but in the meantime, you just have the four of us. And given that last time we talked a bit about why we've got into this area to work in and why we work with women in menopause and that sort of stuff, we thought this time it'd be quite nice to actually get to know a little bit more about each of us. So I'm going to start with Sallyanne. On the spot. Tell us a bit about roughly where you live, who your family is, what your interests are. You know, a bit more about you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm from Dublin and I live in Dublin in Ireland. I'm 43 and my interests 150% are menopause at the moment, believe it or not. And funny enough, I was never interested in it in my younger years. I don't know why. You know, in a previous life, as I like to say, I worked in a sales environment and that's what I always did on a commercial level. Nothing to do with health, nothing to do with menopause. I would have loved animals, still do, but I used to horse ride. They're the kind of things I used to enjoy. Then life changed very drastically at 35 for obvious reasons. And I don't do any of the stuff that I've mentioned. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I've become a total menopause nerd. And that's what I love to do. And now I'm supporting women and just learning and researching all the time. So that's me. Oh, I have one daughter and two dogs and antlers.
And the antlers are very important.
Thank you. They're real. Right. I got them from the Phoenix Park here in Dublin because we have a lot of deer there. So yeah.
Oh, that's and yeah. The real deer actually have the little baubles and everything.
Absolutely, and they jingle. Yeah.
Helen, or should I say Santa, do you want to tell us a bit about you?
Santa's coming to town.
I am beaming in from deepest, darkest Scotland actually this morning, although we don't have any snow. I think the rest of the country do. I am 48 and much like everybody else, I was bumbling along in my life perfectly contentedly until 41 when I had a surgical menopause for fibroids, endometriosis, and various ovarian cysts. And before that, I had never given a moment's thought to menopause. After surgery, I thought I would just sail through it. You know, couldn't quite see what all the fuss was about. I didn't. I fell off a cliff for a couple of years. And it was only through finding out myself and through awareness and just connecting with other women and hearing about their experiences that helped me in my own journey. And I left my job. I've completely changed what I do with my life now. I worked in a forensic lab. I did that for 20 years and I thought that was going to be my career forever. And now I do a whole variety of things. I'm an author, I write, I volunteer at a school for young people with ADHD and autism. And in my spare time, I'm a trustee at Menopause Café. And of course, you know, now being part of the Menopause Mavericks. So menopause has taken over my life.
It seems to do that, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. In a good way though now, in a good way.
And it introduces us to all these wonderful people. So
exactly.
So Shelley, I know you've done all sorts of exciting things.
Yes, I've had a very, very colourful life. I've done lots of different things, scientific book illustrator, draftswoman for Nestle, then I became a buyer for Nestle. Then I lost my mother a month after my 21st, very quickly, very suddenly from a brain hemorrhage. To stop me going into meltdown, I qualified to be an air hostess, knowing that I possibly wouldn't get in because the pass marks were so high and I'm not the cleverest little button in the tin. But I think I just threw myself into it and qualified, became an air hostess. And then after that, we were made redundant. It was with Laker Airways and I was flying out of Gatwick because I was born in London. I didn't know what to do after that. So I taught myself to type poorly. And I then went and registered with about 10 temping agencies. And I then became a professional temp for years. And that was really good fun, actually, because it showed me that there are no limits. You know, if you want to do something, you will do it. I married my childhood sweetheart. And we went into property and things like that. So the journey to where I am now, we set a company up in Palm Springs for another a sister company, and then we came back. He got headhunted up to Chesterfield in Derbyshire, which is where we are now. That's where we had our 3 daughters, with one set being twins, interesting, and 2 border collies. That was also interesting. And we bought a lovely big house that needed serious renovating, because that's what we enjoyed doing. And my husband had a horrific accident and became an amputee and disabled. So I ended up with this ramshack house and a garden that looked like a park as far as I was concerned. And he couldn't help me. And then I had to be taken in very quickly for an emergency full hysterectomy. So the girls were, the eldest was 10 and the twins were 8. And I had no warning, really. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew I had to get rid of the pain. It was the only option I had. So I had that done, came home. It was a little bit like a holiday because I didn't need to do the vacuuming. The girls did that. The garden just became a park. And that was great until obviously it wore thin with the girls and they didn't want to do that anymore because it really is boring. And I never questioned the menopause. I never even thought about it because I decided to do it naturally, because I was only offered HRT for a short amount of time. I thought I'll give it a go. And because my life was so busy with everything that we had on, if I had a symptom and something came up, and I thought, well, that doesn't feel right. I wonder if that is a symptom. I researched it. Virtually everything I did was minerals, supplements, vitamins, things like that. I just researched it, tried it, and it worked. So I actually sailed through the menopause. I was too busy not to. And what I found worked. So I just assumed it worked for everybody. And then as time went on, I was asked to help my friends, because when the girls got older, I suddenly felt very old. I'm 61, sorry, everybody else has said their ages. And I had my hysterectomy at 43. And I just felt so old. I just didn't understand where the lines had come from and, you know, what was happening with the body, you know, where had the waist gone? Obviously, my ankles were puffier because that's obviously everything moved down. It was just shocking. So I decided to give myself a full MOT audit service. And that's what I did. I completely changed me for me. And to be honest, that was the best thing I did. And then that ended up with me helping my friends with the way they look, which had a knock-on effect to the way they feel and their confidence. The highest compliment I was paid, I think, was my husband sent me a message and said, "What on earth have you done to my wife?" And I thought, oh, crikey, here we go. And he said, "No, she's so much happier and she looks 10 years younger. What on earth have you done?" And it was all about just changing bits of her and her discovering who the new her was. And that I'm absolutely loving. So that I sort of do on the side, but I have ended up with obviously Facebook group and now Menopause Help, where I've got some fabulous experts, really good quality experts that help women in all their expertise go through the menopause as easily and as simply as possible. And it ended up with me just doing this, and I'm loving it. I wrote a book, worldwide author, who'd have thought, crikey. And it's just so interesting finding out how much more there is out there and how much more you can do and how much you can change women's lives and how much of a difference you can make. And I think that's why all us Mavericks together feel exactly the same way. And that's why we do what we do. And that's why I think we've come together collectively. And I just think this is fabulous. I just want women to have hope. There is so much help out there. And it's
And
not the beginning of the end, as far as I'm concerned, as the oldie. It's actually the beginning of the beginning. And this is now the best time of my life.
I love the fact that we have such a wide range of job experience, of family lives, of all of that. And it just shows that we're all different, but actually we will all get to this point, won't we? I mean, just to quickly sort of bore you with my background, I did my first wine exams when I was 17. So I wasn't actually legally allowed to drink, but I was allowed to do a wine exam. And then went off to study French at university, and after that worked at Majestic Wine for several years, excuse me, before realising that living in London really wasn't for me. And so going off to do one ski season and came home 5 years later because, you know, it was fun, really, living in the Alps, having snow all the time. Got back to the UK and realised that the first winter back in the UK was going to be massively depressing. So I went and worked in Romania with some brown bears because that seemed like the obvious thing to do at that point. Then set up my own wine business. Fast forward to age 39. By that point, I'd become a triathlete, and very slow triathlete, I will say, but you know, a happy, smiley one. And suddenly perimenopause hit me like a ton of bricks. And I went from being able to train 6 days a week to barely getting out of bed and needing a nap every day. And it was quite a big slap round the chops, if I'm honest, because through all my wine merchant days, I had done the sort of office job during the day and then led tastings during the evening, been working happily kind of 60, 70, 80 hour weeks, the same in the ski seasons. And suddenly, and whilst unlike some of you guys, I haven't had a surgical menopause, I'm still happily going through it all. The lack of information and the lack of support, and I felt as though I was too young to be in this sphere. Obviously now I'm in this sphere, I realise I'm not at all too young, but at the time, age 39, age 42, by the time the doctor agreed with me that that was probably what was happening, I felt that there was nothing out there for, you know, massively immature people with purple hair. There was only stuff that seemed to be aimed at people who were much more grown up than me. So, you know, as with everybody, I've set it up because I filled the gap that I wanted to be there. And I think I just love that, you know, with all our different backgrounds, all our different outlooks on life and so on and so forth, we still all have this absolute common goal. So further to that, I'm going to ask you each another question because I want to dig deeper about all of you. So, Sallyanne, you said that you've got a daughter and 2 dogs, did you say?
2 dogs, yes.
So, how old's your daughter and who are your dogs?
My dogs are golden Labrador called Max and a maniac of some sort of a mix of a Cocker Spaniel who's not mentally stable called Rosie. And they're here and they're being very quiet, so I don't want to say their names too much. And my daughter is 12 years old, going on 24. So it's really interesting. So there's hormones flying everywhere. It's really good fun. But
Mother Nature's really kind like that, isn't she? That she puts mum and daughter at the, you know.
But menopause, in a way, you know, I see it as a good thing now because I'm so informed, because I wouldn't have known anything, and I totally understand her now, and I understand what she's going through in puberty, whereas I might not have if I didn't understand the fluctuations of hormones. So it's really interesting what our reproductive system does to us. That's a nice way of putting it. It's interesting.
Interesting.
Very. But, you know, listening to everyone, I think it's wonderful because everyone's told a little bit of their story, some more than others. That's amazing. But there's been so many different life experiences and a lot of personal pain and suffering as well. And, you know, we all go through so much in life. It's so hard. And then it just becomes so much harder when menopause comes along because we lose our coping skills as well. And, you know, Shelley, you know, what you've been through and what you said with your husband and everything, and menopause in a way really came along and slapped you, but as you said, you were too busy and you found your way, and now you find it the best days of your life. So there's a lot of positives to it as well. And I love that when menopause comes along, you're losing the caring about stuff part of you. And that's really good because we spend most of our youth worrying about everything and worrying about what other people think and what's going to happen next. And menopause comes and you're like, I don't care. So that's a good part of it. It's not all bad.
Absolutely, I agree. So Helen, it looks to me like you're stroking maybe a cat there.
No, I'm stroking my bear. I'm stroking my bear.
Ah, excellent. Oh, I love that. Oh, he's
Because
awesome.
I don't have any pets, and I feel the need to have some sort of creatures about. So I have a teddy bear, and he joins in all of my Zoom calls. Oh gosh, wow.
So this was officially bought for one of my dogs for her birthday, but she wasn't interested because she's ancient. And if I leave it anywhere, it'll get destroyed by the others. So it now lives on my desk.
Everybody needs some form of cuddly toy. I think they're too good for children. That they're just adults always need one. So yeah.
I agree. And Shelley, do you still have dogs now?
No.
No. And how old are the girls now?
How old are the girls now? One will be, oh, here we go. One will be 30 on the 5th of January, and the twins will be 28 on the 11th of January.
Oh my goodness.
It's a busy year. It's a busy month. It's a busy month. So yes, so we're very close together.
They've all gone through all their, they're in the nice stable bit.
I don't think they'll ever be stable because they've got me as a mother, to be fair. But yes, we went through the puberty stage quite rapidly together, which was rather nice. It wasn't all drawn out, and the elder one helped the younger two through it. But, you know, they're a bit like me. They are busy and they just get on with things. And if there's a problem, they try and find a solution and then just get on with things. So, yeah, they're quite nice little achieving bunnies, really, to be fair to them. But for me, that was my saving grace, was being busy. And then using the time that women will get when their family doesn't need them as much. I strongly urge them to use it on them. Rediscover them. They will have got so much from puberty to where they are now that they didn't even realize they knew about themselves. And it's lovely to rediscover it, and how you would use everything about you now moving forward and how you want your life to be. You can write your future as much as you possibly can, and don't ever let age be a number. In fact, go backwards. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm still 18. It's fine.
Pardon?
I'm still 18. It's great.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I get if the girls do ever take me out, we went to Liverpool once and went to the Café and the nightclub and everything, and they were asking, could you possibly get your mother off the dance floor? I was having so much fun, way more than they were, and I mean, they found it funny, but I'm sure deep down they found it slightly cringing as well. But just enjoy it, and as you get older, it doesn't matter.
No.
If you get it wrong, sorry, it's my age. Perfect. You don't have to explain yourself so much. It's wonderful.
I think you must be psychic, Shelley, because literally the next thing I was about to ask each of you in turn was, what bit of advice would you give to people about the fact that actually, you know, this is a good thing? Because, you know, we all see this in our groups and in the people we interact with about all things menopause, that there's sort of quite a lot of negative press around it. There's quite a lot of people really feeling very lost and very bemused by the whole thing. But, you know, I think as a group, we're all pretty positive about things. So obviously, Shelley, you're saying, you know, to hell with it. This is who I am. And, you know, that's brilliant. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
I just love the discovery. I just love knowing what else can I do? What more boundaries can I push? And I think that is for me, it's a really healthy thing, because I know I do have, you know, contact with quite a few menopausal women in all different stages of the menopause. And the thing that really saddens me about a lot of them is how much, yes, they're hurting, but they're also moaning so much about it that it's attracting other moaners to them. And then they're all getting sort of more and more down about it. And you think, well, can we just put the brakes on this? Can we just take it back to basics, find out what will work for you? And then you've got that part of your life as under control as you can have it. And then let's find out how you can move on and start enjoying life. because it has a knock-on effect to your family, your friends, but more importantly, you.
Absolutely. And when you think that the average age for women in the UK, the average age that women live to in the UK is 87, I think, at the moment. Well, that's mine and Sallyanne's ages added together. So both of us are halfway through. So why would we want to be writing ourselves off just because our hormones are changing? Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it?
But there's so many options out there. There is obviously the HRT, there's a bioidentical hormones, there's natural remedies. There is so much out there for you to try that has worked for countless other women. Why wouldn't you try it? And if the natural route doesn't work, go on to HRT. There's nothing wrong with it. There really isn't. It's safer now than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. Some can go on it, some can't. Some do want to go on it, some don't. It's all personal choice. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's whatever works for you to get your life back. That's it.
So Helen and Sallyanne, do you have any further things to add about advice that you'd give for people who are feeling pretty lost as they're coming into all of this, or, you know, who aren't quite sure what the way through is?
I think Shelley has covered a lot there, but information is really, because information wasn't around for our mothers and our grandmothers, and, you know, it's only very recent, actually. I think in recent years there's so much going on, particularly in social media. And I think if a woman is informed and understands menopause, that's actually, she's more than halfway there then, because the biggest problem is women thinking they're going mad. And of course they say it to others, they go, oh God, that doesn't happen to me, or I've never heard of that before. And that makes them feel even more lonely and more lost, because there's still a huge taboo around the subject. But this is the year 2020, and like Shelley said, there are so many options. It's not like there's one option and if it doesn't work, you're in a corner. There's so many options, and knowledge is power.
Yeah. Helen, any more bits of advice from you?
I think reach out and connect with other women in particular. Don't become isolated, because I think it's then so easy to get in a downward spiral. And we've all been, or certainly we've all been there, and I don't think there's an experience that another woman out there will not already have been through. And I think there's a huge amount of empathy out there. It's just tapping into it. But I'd just echo what everybody else has said. I think it's awareness. It's also persistence, which I know can be really hard, particularly when, if you're perhaps clinically depressed, it's a big struggle, to even get out of bed, let alone present yourself at the GPs. But take somebody with you, get somebody on side with you, take a buddy with you. And just persistence, I think, just keep at it and just keep reaching out.
Absolutely. And further to what you've just said about someone else will always be experiencing it, this is something in my Facebook group for the Perimenopause Hub. We have a very clear rule that nothing is TMI, so nothing is too much information. Because often people go, oh, I'm really sorry, but is it okay if I talk about this? If you're experiencing that, then other people in the group will be. So please talk about it, because if you can talk about it in any of our safe groups, that gets you one step closer to talking to the doctor about it, or talking to your practitioner, whatever route you want to go down. You've got to get over that first hurdle of thinking, oh God, I'm really embarrassed about this. Maybe I'm the only person. You aren't. I mean, really simply, you won't be the only person experiencing that. And the more we can all support each other and all open up the conversation, I think the better it is.
I've really found that in my group. I really have. I mean, all right, it's menopause help, but also the strap line is before, during and after, because I think it's so important, as Sallyanne says, to know before you think you're getting there that actually maybe you are. And then during, you feel very lonely and isolated and lost, because obviously none of your friends feel like that, and your mother sailed through it or whatever it is. So you're feeling like Sallyanne said, you're going absolutely mad. And then afterwards, you just feel old, and just your life is stretching out in front of you. You might have an occasional or odd symptom. That's why I think we all really champion the PeopleWith app. That I think that is the biggest lifeline that women can have before, because then is what I'm feeling part of the menopause, during everything that is working or isn't working, and then afterwards, is the woman still getting symptoms, and what can
Shelley,
help her with that?
you're completely reading my mind today. Each time you talk, you're
It's the tinsel.
next. It's really funny. So the next thing I was going to say, and I'm going to bring us onto the app in a moment.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry. I think it's brilliant. Each time I'm like, yep, I was okay, cool. Hang on a sec. So that was going to be the next thing I was going to say. So for all of us, this came and just blindsided us, whether that was through a surgical thing, whether that was through just the change of hormones, whatever. Each of us had to find our own way through symptoms that we weren't expecting. I think it's probably fair to say all of us in our mid-30s or whatever all expected that the menopause happened in our 50s and was a few hot flushes and then it was all done. So what advice would any of us give to women in their 20s and 30s, not to terrify them that this is coming, but to help them to prepare? And obviously this is where in a minute I will start talking about the PeopleWith app, because I think that's a really useful part of it. But so Sallyanne, what advice would you give to your daughter when she gets into her mid-20s, for example? What advice would you give to her and her friends?
Okay, and I often think if I could turn back time, the advice I'd give to I would have tracked my cycle. All right. And I don't mean as in it's every 28 days or every 30 days. I mean symptoms. I would have tracked, and just even a quick note every day, good mood, bad mood, headache, no head, whatever, there's no need to write, a full diary. That is hugely important. And it was something I realized when this came and hit me. I couldn't remember. I just knew I had all of these symptoms, but couldn't remember in what order or what time of the cycle or any of that. I think it's really important for any female to understand her own body and understand the power of hormones. Nobody thinks about hormones. They're the most powerful biochemical in the body. They're who we are. They're never considered. And I think it's really important that every female out there knows her own body and recognizes what's what. And she'll be more prepared then. Okay, tracking the symptoms doesn't solve things, but she'll see a pattern and she'll understand what means what. I'm in a good mood, I'm in a bad mood, I have a headache, or whether, some females unfortunately have, things like endometriosis and worse things. And it's just so important really just to know your own body, because like any of us, well, me anyway, I hadn't a clue. And menopause was something that happened really old people, and it was never going to happen me. And I knew nothing. And I thought maybe, oh yeah, I think your periods stop and you get a hot flush, because I've seen someone on the TV mention it. And what I'm finding as a menopause mentor is it's very rare I speak to a woman that gets a hot flush. It's not that common.
Yeah.
And these women all have all these different labels and conditions, and they're all menopause, and nobody has joined the dots. So join the dots beforehand.
I agree entirely. The whole thing about tracking your cycle, honestly, if I could go back and shake 20-year-old me and put some sense into her, I mean, I'd need more than just tracking my cycle, but I would be, because the power of tracking, until, exactly as you said, Sallyanne, until I started tracking because things were amiss, I didn't realize I had, a few days in the month when, frankly, I'm useless. Each month I beat myself up about it. I didn't realize I had a few days when I'm absolutely on fire, and frankly that's when I should be getting everything done. I just thought they were good days. I didn't realize, through all my millions of years of dieting, kill me now, I didn't realize that there were going to be times in my month when I would just need to be in the biscuit barrel, and there were going to be times in the month when I would need salad, and I beat myself up about it. And God, if only I'd known.
Yeah. If we could turn back time.
There's a song in there, isn't there?
There is. Do you want to sing it, Helen?
No, thank you.
So that brings us on to the app, which obviously, for anybody watching this who doesn't know, the reason that we have met each other is through the PeopleWith app. And, well, I mean, I'm a firm advocate for people tracking everything. And what I like with the app, and I feel like I'm doing some big promo thing here, I'm really not, this is genuine and from the heart. With all the period trackers out there, it's contained to tracking your periods. and associated things. What I like with the PeopleWith one is that you can track anything. So you just find that symptom, whether it's mood, whether it's, I don't know, energy levels, whether it's hunger, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. You find it in the app and you track it. And however often you want to go in and track it, and then you get your little graph so you can see what your fluctuations have been. And I find that just so useful. I mean, I like using a period app for knowing where actually in my cycle I am. Excuse me, I'm going to cough, so I'm going to hand over to Shelley.
All right. Are you okay? Track that.
What are your thoughts on the app?
I think you need to go and get some water, darling. Good girl. Yes, well, I totally agree with tracking your periods and things like that. I think that is the early warning sign for a lot of women that go through it naturally, which obviously I didn't. For me, with the surgical menopause, the app would have really helped me to actually daily, weekly track how I was feeling. So, you know, aches and pains. Why was I getting aches and pains all of a sudden? Was this a menopausal symptom? Now, if I had an app that said, yes, it possibly could be, and you could try this, this, or this, I would have done it straight away. I had to do the research, and it took me hours, days. I ended up writing a whole book of an A to Z on symptoms. I didn't think there was already A to Z on symptoms. But so many different things will help so many different people. You just have to find out what helps you. And that app will cut through all that noise and all that searching that you don't have to do, because you are in control of saying, that's how I feel today, or that's how I felt yesterday. And you can track it. So is it round what would have been your natural cycle, so that you're more prepared for it? Is it because the hormones are leaving your body and you need to replenish them with something? And then if you do go on to HRT, is that HRT actually the right one for you? And the only way a doctor's going to know is not having this brain fog woman in front of him that's really not wanting to be there. He can see on a chart that's not working for her. It really isn't. Maybe I've given her the wrong one. Maybe she should try the patch or the gel, or maybe HRT isn't working for her. It cuts through so much time so a woman can get on with her busy, busy life and not just think that nobody's actually listening to her and she doesn't matter. That's Absolutely. Why I think this PeopleWith app is just a game changer.
And and further to that, what I like with it is that you can, goodness, it's snowing out there. You can track all of the medications that you're taking, whether that's supplements or prescribed medications. You can track any other diagnoses that you have as well. So it all comes together in one big picture, doesn't it? Which, just like the basics of tracking your cycle empowers you, tracking everything really puts you in a strong position for when you do go to the doctor and you've got that whole 10 minutes in front of them.
I think that is so important, because if you are on medication, some supplements don't agree with some medications and they shouldn't be taken together. And women, if they know that, all right, check with your doctor definitely, or the pharmacist, but she will see very, very quickly whether things aren't working right. And it's so visual.
I'm glad you said that, because the supplements, oh my goodness, and women need to understand natural doesn't always mean safe. We're all different genetically and we may be on different meds, and not everything suits everyone. So just because something says it's good for menopause doesn't mean it's good for you. You really need to get to know yourself, and as you're saying, Shelley, look into all these things properly.
Well, everybody's different. We are as unique as fingerprints. So just because something's worked for me or my friend doesn't mean it'll work for my other 3 friends. It most probably won't. Yeah. But with the app, they can track it themselves rather than guessing. And that gives them power back. It gives them a voice back, and it gives them proof to go to a doctor or to a natural herbalist, wherever they want to go, but armed with facts. And they have never had that before.
Certainly when you think that through the menopause transition, many of us struggle with our short-term memory and a bit of brain fog. And I can't be the only one who's turned up to the doctor with a post-it note going, I don't know, this is what I could remember and I wrote it down. So suddenly when you've got it just in your phone and you can turn up and go, and I mean, I haven't tried to do this, but you can link this up to your practitioner as well so that they can then see it. They can track the data for you.
That's really good, isn't it? Because I know I was saying like write it down and that, because I mean back years ago there weren't apps and phones, but everyone now, and going back to the original question of younger people now, I mean they have that technology and they're going to have better and better. So yeah, have the app. I mean, don't mind what I said about writing it down. Use the app. It's personal preference, but I'm just, you know, like these apps weren't there a few years ago. It's amazing what's happening.
Yeah, but it's so true, and it just gives you the power back, doesn't it? And it's because I'm sure all of us and anybody watching has gone to a doctor and sort of gone, I don't know, I feel rubbish. I don't know, I don't feel really like me. And that's not helpful to the doctor and it's not helpful to us, but that's how we feel. And obviously the more we've been tracking, whether it's writing it down, whether it's in an app, it doesn't really matter. It's whatever you're comfortable with. But if you can turn up and go, right, this is why, and I'm noticing that these things are happening at this time every month, and I'm noticing that these things are happening at this time every month. And you know what, I frankly feel crap at this time every month, and this isn't great. Could we kind of join some dots here, please? Because I need to feel better. I need to be able to function because I'm busy and I've got my life to live. And actually, I don't have the time to just feel rubbish all the time.
I think that would also help so many women with being quickly put onto antidepressants, when possibly antidepressants isn't what she wants or needs.
Yes.
But by the time she's gone blah, 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 in 10 minutes, he's going to say she's a basket case. I've got to put her on antidepressants. She's obviously very, very depressed.
Yeah, and because anxiety is one of the less talked about symptoms, certainly early in the perimenopause part of things, you know, so many women are being put on SSRIs to manage the anxiety, when actually the anxiety is part of a hormonal cycle, which if they've been tracking, they'll see that the anxiety is peaking at certain times in the cycle and isn't a continuous thing.
Well, it gives power back to them, but it also gives power to the doctor to look at the facts and hopefully diagnose with a slightly different diagnosis than they would have given if they didn't have the facts on an app. That's why I think it's a game changer.
I agree. Any thoughts, Helen? I know you're busy, you know, with your elves and overseeing general Lapland stuff, but
I mean, as regards the app, it's simple and yet it's powerful. And I think that's the thing. I mean, we've seen some of the data behind it, and it's incredible what it can get up to. And as you say, given that, you know, we're such absolutely complex systems, you tweak one tiny thing and that can have a huge knock-on effect that very often we're not aware of. So I think, you know, getting everything you can into the tracker, it's a really powerful beast. Yeah, yeah, powerful, simple and yet powerful. I mean, the interface really couldn't be any easier. And you know, the output from it, I think, is, yeah, as Shelley said, it's game changing.
That's what we want. Power back to women.
Yeah.
Get in.
Yeah.
pretty much, and that's why we're here. I feel that gives us a very nice sort of end point, but I feel we haven't talked for long enough.
We haven't seen your leggings, Emily. That's the thing.
Oh, Helen, you horrible woman. Oh, now she said it. You've got to show us.
So
You only need to see a knee, Emily. I'm not talking.
Fine. I need to give some context. As well as doing this, I'm a personal trainer, and after this, I'm off to lead a fitness class. So I missed them in leggings on the bottom.
Why would you not want to show those, Shelley? They're absolutely marvelous.
They are marvelous. I have many pairs. I have these ones. I have several pairs of Mr. Men leggings, and that's kind of my trademark thing these days.
So talking about leggings, Helen, do you have elf tights on, darling?
Do.
You show us.
Do. There we are. I'm Santa from the middle up, but I'm an elf from the waist down.
Hey,
You're going to want a pair now, Emily, aren't you?
I will, yes. I'm holding out for the day that the company I got these from do Bagpuss ones, because Emily loved it.
Oh, yes, please. Clangers, even better.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a market for someone, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. I think, in my little world of the fitness world, there's too many people just wear very, very plain, very subdued things, and
That's me.
not me.
But I zhuzh it up with jewellery or tinsel or something like that.
Okay, so, right, before I wrap this up, any other bits of advice that people would give to younger people about, obviously colourful leggings is an important piece of advice that we would all give, but any other bits of advice, Sallyanne, any other bits of advice that you would give to younger people coming up to this?
sorry, the dog is joining in. Just to repeat what I said earlier, track your cycle, but okay, if you're 20, you don't need to be too concerned about menopause, or maybe you don't think so, but I would learn. There's so much information out there between all of us, all our websites and groups and things like that. Learn about menopause. I always say we need to know what menopause looks like, okay? Because everyone thinks hot flushes and night sweats and things like that. It doesn't look like that. It usually looks like anxiety, and you're usually anxious because you're very busy or because you've things going on in your life, or so you're told, but it's usually the first sign of hormones changing is anxiety. So it's important, know your menopause. Yeah.
Helen, any further tips aside from having elf leggings, obviously?
Goes without saying. To my younger self, I would just say be kind to yourself, and really self-compassion. I think perhaps so many of us just try, if we're not feeling well, we just think, well, we'll just work a little bit harder. We just need to do this. We just need to do that. And I think sometimes just really cutting ourselves a break and saying, no, I'm having a crappy day. I'm just going to do nothing. And I think it's so important, just really, really big, healthy dollop of self-compassion every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's nice with that is I think there's this wider perception that self-care and self-compassion needs to be all very big gestures and things. It simply doesn't, does it? It can be just curling up with a book for 5 minutes, or getting outside, or whatever, can't it? It can be really tiny things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shelley?
To my younger self, get to know your body, because you know your body better than anyone else. Don't compare yourself to others, because when your body feels it's time to start changing, it will start changing. It doesn't matter what your neighbours said. So tracking it, as Sallyanne says, is so important. And I would seriously advise it in my mid-late 30s onwards, because then by the time Mother Nature decides that you are going to go into the menopause arena, you know your body better than anybody else. You will know when things aren't quite right. And that gives you power back. And then, as Helen said, please, please take some you time. It is so important, even if it's just a bubble bath, and some candles, it doesn't matter. Give yourself just some time to relax, some time to wind down. And then maybe a lot of anxious thoughts and things will go away. And if they have, you're slightly too stressed. If they haven't, maybe it is a menopausal symptom. You don't know. But until you start tracking you, just for you, you won't know an awful lot that you could have known if you'd had something like the app. And that gives you time and power back. And that's what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, I agree entirely. The something I see a lot of in my group is this guilt about putting ourselves first, this guilt about not always being all things to all other people, when actually it's one of the wonderful things about the whole sort of menopause phase is that it comes along and says, put yourself first. Yeah. And we have to listen. And if we carry on not listening, we're just going to feel awful. So yeah. track and put yourself first. There we
Yeah.
are. And colourful leggings and Christmas stuff.
And antlers.
Yeah. Thank you very much, ladies. I think that's been a very another useful session. And next time we'll have Emma back with us as well.
Excellent.